Hello and welcome to another episode of The Aftermath. My name is Ian, and as always, I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Dylan.
He'll never get rid of me.
He'll never get rid of me, not this time. And tonight, which I was not expecting, need I remind you, we have a very last minute, very special guest who's a friend of both of ours, Cade.
Hello.
So how are you, man?
It is a great day.
Can I just say this? You have reminded me of this very thing I'm about to talk about, I think 2 or 3 different times, and I have completely forgotten about it each time. I don't think you have been officially on an episode of the podcast, correct?
I have not.
Okay, so, but you can go ahead and tell the rest of the story.
No, yeah, I was actually, I was here when you and Dylan were actually shooting your first episode, which isn't even on here, which is episode 0.
Right.
And, like, there was, I was talking to them about this tonight of, like, trying to go back and find that actual episode, because they said some hilarious stuff. Like, I mean, I'm in the background, they're, like, huddling over this one mic.
Yes.
Just, like, talking into it, sharing it back
I think it was
and
actually that
forth.
microphone over there. It was one of those.
It's like his actual microphone
Right,
now?
right.
Okay, yeah. And, like, I'm sitting in the background because it picks up everything. And I'm sitting in the background, like, faces beat red because I am laughing my ass off. It was hilarious. And y'all should like look into potentially like putting
I think
that
so.
on there.
It is an episode. I think it's our trailer episode.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So it's not on
So
like
it's not
the
like
catalog.
episode 0.
Yeah, if you go onto like our Spotify, I think it's like the trailer episode that like is the.
It's gonna be up at the top as opposed to.
Well, now you're
Right.
like friend shaming me. Like,
I
you
want to
didn't check out our trailer.
No. I don't know. But if you want to go back and listen to it, it should be like right there at the top.
You can
If
probably
you're
hear
a
like
real
my
friend, that
breath
is.
in the background, like slight giggles.
Right. It is.
I'm there.
The echo of laughter.
The reminiscence of Cade.
The
I had totally forgotten about that because, to be honest, that feels like ages ago that happened.
Oh yeah.
And then whenever he reminded me of it, he reminded me of it before,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, I vaguely remember that happening. And then, of course, you reminded me again tonight, and I was like, well, I mean, what a unique episode to have you on. Like I said, he had came over to the house, and I was helping him get some stuff set up for his computer stuff and just other nonsense, and was coming to hang out for a bit. And then Dylan was like, well, while you're here, let's wrangle you up into the episode. And I was like, I think this is his first episode. And then, so anyways, small world, and
Welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard officially. I'm glad you're getting your debut tonight.
I feel so special.
Yeah, I'm glad. With that out the way, this was
A very special
a
episode.
very special episode indeed.
Oh my gosh.
I may I say, neither one of us knew when this came out officially.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of stumbled across it last night.
Yeah.
I
knew it came out June 3rd.
Okay. I just remember
not
you
in
had
the U.S.
Okay. I remember you had typed it in yesterday, and you're like, "Oh, well, I guess it came out last month. That's fine."
Right.
So I was definitely surprised as well. But
Mhm.
this is Mobile Suit Gundam Cucuruz Doan's Island.
Yes.
And this is a remake of the 15th episode of the original series of Mobile Suit Gundam.
a lost
A
episode.
lost episode, lost to time.
Mhm.
Probably for good reason. But
Yeah.
the original runtime of that episode was 24 minutes and 46 seconds, and they have proceeded to make an hour and a half or hour and 20 minute long movie out of it. And
Oh yeah.
boy, howdy, was that a pretty movie?
Oh yeah. It was
Especially
great.
for anime standards.
And you know what's
Mhm.
really funny too? Like, I don't know if you know this. I'm pretty sure you knew this. This is my first Gundam.
Yep.
In fact,
Yeah.
this is my first mech. I mean, unless you want to count Transformers, which was a conversation that we had way earlier.
Right.
This is technically like my first introduction into the mech genre, and I
Wow.
couldn't have thought of I quote unquote couldn't have thought of probably a better episode to start it off with. Like
Yeah.
it was.
there's
solid.
probably better things out there to introduce you into this stuff.
I don't
but
believe
no, I'm talking about better things in particular. But I don't think a better franchise we could have chosen. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's what I guess that's what I was trying to say. There's probably better Gundam things out there we probably could have introduced you into the series. But as far as like the actual like mech franchise, man, Gundam really is like the tried and true. Is what it feels like. Been around since 79. It's been around for a while. It's got legs on it. So, but so before we really get into Dylan and I's kind of gush on this movie, I guess, how was this experience for you as this kind of
the first timer's impression?
Yes, of Gundam, of mech, of this kind of.
Well, like for this series in particular, like me and Dylan had a conversation on this like way earlier today, or say way earlier, but when we were talking about it,
a couple hours ago,
we were having like a conversation of like the realism that this genre of mech has, and like the attention to detail, like when he was talking about Paris burning, like Hitler wanting to say that Paris was burning, like the attention to detail of like calling out that name of like a storm that we had never heard of. I was like,
a squall.
A squall.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the heck? And so there was like small things that was like attention to details that I very, very much enjoyed that, because you don't see that a lot of times in animes, and there was some like cultural differences there, but that was my main.
Especially because like the Zeon are kind of sort of portrayed as space Nazis.
Yeah, that's what they turn into eventually.
Yeah. Eventually, they kind of have. They're not originally like that, and then as things kind of devolve,
they only get more and
they
more extreme.
really get extremist, and so the fact that they say that is also very par for the course for them. Apt. Yeah,
like with like Doan being like the first Zeon that I was like introduced to.
Right.
It made me think, oh, they're not that bad.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the full picture yet.
Right, of course. But
it's just one man.
Yes. But just
beautiful man.
Just know that is a through line with at least from what my experiences of Gundam, the Universal Century timeline.
Yeah.
So like that mainline franchise of like core Gundam series and movies, they do a really good job of there are bad people in places of power, but there's also good people out there on both sides. Right. And so it really there's a handful of shows we watched that follow some Zeon soldiers that are like decent people. And just
MS being one of them.
Yes. Oh gosh. What a great that are just
War in the Pocket.
War in the Pocket, dude, is a good one. It has that way of blurring the line between good and evil. It blurs the line between black and white. There are shades in the middle, and you can have these opposing forces, but that doesn't mean that everyone's like that.
Right.
And it's so interesting, and this further proves that point as well, that like there are good people out there and you can be against XYZ or against that, but then like deep down you're like, but this person's a good guy. And you're like, yeah. Like
kind of like reminding me of like kind of like the anime scene. It brings me back to what it makes me feel like is Death Note. Like it gives me like a Death Note vibe, because if you ever watched
it's been a long time since I've watched that.
Dude, I've seen it like 8 times, bro.
Yeah.
But it's like the counter between good and evil, how you're like, oh yeah, I really like this character one moment, you really like this character the next. You're rooting for both characters at the same time, even though you like there's pros and cons to each side. It's very psychologically in depth.
It makes it feel dynamic.
That's a better word.
That's the same reason why I think I loved a lot about Game of Thrones originally, is the fact that like the people felt dynamic. You can there was a handful of characters that introduced, and like the first few sequences you're like, I vehemently dislike this character, and then as you get to see that character grow and change and realize their flaws and get to be a better person, you're like, you know what, I see where you came from, and I see that you're trying, and I commend you for that. And it's that kind of stuff. I'm like, that's good character writing. And I feel like Gundam is just sprinkled with good character writing. There's so many good characters that are just good people in bad situations or around bad people that are just trying to do their best sometimes. And it's like, man, I see you, and you're really trying your best out there.
I'm rooting for you.
I'm rooting for you. And sometimes it doesn't always turn out good. Actually, there's a lot of times where Gundam
it almost exclusively turns out bad.
Sometimes there's a lot of times in Gundam where it gets real depressing, and you're like, "Oh shit, dude."
Yeah.
What was that one Stardust Memory?
Oh God.
Oof. We won't get into all the nitty gritty details, but it's one of those things where like you're just really rooting for this guy, and he just keeps getting like kicked while he's down. And you're like, damn, son, you're just trying your best.
Oh yeah.
It's just,
You got this, buddy.
you got this. But then at the end, you're like, man, yeah. Anyways, it's just like I said, this series is nothing but great detail as far as artistic design, the way like the actual like mechanics of like these suits work.
Oh yeah.
And all that kind of stuff, and even like the characters and how they're written, and it's just all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a great example of how you can probably have good writing, poor artistic direction, and all this other stuff, and you can just you can make something out of what people would seem to be nothing, really.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I wish I had like the ability to actually like watch the beginnings of Gundam before actually getting into this, because like there were certain times that I was like, hey, can we pause? Because I need to make sure I need to go back. Like I can't like mentally wrap my head around this. And I feel like that like if I watched it from the beginning, I could have been so much better prepared for this to actually like enjoy. Like I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
Like it was a great 8 out of 10, solid.
Yeah.
Pretty solid.
yes.
Movie. But like having the ability to kind of understand it just a little bit more.
Because, yes, I hear what you're saying. I did with Gundam that I also kind of did with the Godzilla franchise. And listeners of this podcast know very well.
Oh, yeah.
I like ping-ponged around. And because Gundam has been created from 1978 until June of this year, they definitely kind of ping-pong with the timeline as well. So, like, we may be in UC 0079 in the beginning, but sometimes it goes far future. Sometimes it goes a little bit in the past before that. And so I started off kind of like toward the tail end of the UC timeline with Gundam Unicorn. And I was like, this is a pretty show. Oh my gosh. And this is like, and it kind of gets buck wild. There's like some really crazy, like mind-boggling shit that happened in that series. But then to like look at how pretty that looks, and then to kind of go back midway and to kind of ping pong around, and then I think we watched the movies of the original series, which is like a compilation of the episodes into like movies kind
all
of
the story critical moments, with
right?
Most of the filler cut out,
right? And so I watched those, and it's like what, 2 or 3?
3 movies.
3 movies. So I got like the core story. So it had like that original art style from 79. It had that like kind of quirky old anime vibe, kind of like how like classic Dragon Ball does a little bit.
Or like Cowboy Bebop, or like,
a little more.
Not quite, a lot older than Cowboy Bebop.
Right. Cowboy Bebop has like a cooler like vibe to it. This has a little bit more. It feels like it feels like an anime kind of geared towards kids, but it hammers on
Voltron.
I've never seen Voltron before.
It's got the look of Voltron, like old school Voltron.
Yeah.
Like stylistically, but it has that realistic backdrop.
Oh, right. That is one thing.
Fucking war crimes happening.
Yeah, there is some. It really does hit on some heavy notes, as you can tell. With, I mean, this one movie we watched is just a little piece of the pie.
Right.
That kind of goes along with is like there are. People explode. There are nukes. There's shit happens, you know, and that is what it is. But again, we're all kids on a spaceship trying to learn how to be good people in this world. And it's like, man, what a wild ride this is. But anyways, so I hear what you're saying, that you probably would have had a little more buy-in if you probably would have known the story. But just know, like, if this is what interested you, going back is also like it may have a different vibe, but it keeps that same sort of story critical elements. And then even up to like the most recent movie that came out, Hathaway or Mobile Suit Gundam Hathaway's Flash. I'm not sure what the actual legitimate title is, but man, what a beautiful film.
Oh yeah, dude.
And it, especially in like that core, it's like the most recent thing of like most recent quote unquote created film in the Gundam UC timeline. So and it is so interesting.
So like just out of curiosity, because you were talking about it earlier about the fact that it kind of looked more like old style animation,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right. Was like, in your opinion, do you have like a preference? I'm asking actually for both of you. Do y'all have a preference towards which types of like Gundam style or mech anime in general just kind of has that feel? Like, what's your opinion on that?
I like it all.
Oh yeah,
Of course you like it all, Dylan.
Well, I mean, this is Dylan's like stomping ground. So I mean, he's like the connoisseur, the mech anime sommelier of, you know, he has like has every flavor that you can imagine. You give him a curveball and he's like, I got the mech anime for you.
There are
picking.
a couple of examples I can think of where they were treading like that new 3D CGI animation for mecha I don't like.
Right.
Because it looks all janky and weird.
Right.
And it just doesn't
There's a lot of
come across
things
the same way.
There's a lot of things in that time frame that kind of look a lot like
Yeah.
that. That late 90s, early 2000s, like everything is kind of this weird.
It's like, you should not try that. Just put it back down.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's just
Go
that
back to the
weird. It's that
basics.
weird point whenever like animation was becoming really big and popular, and it was like doing well, and so they try to 3D animate everything, and sometimes like it just keep it the way it was.
Yeah, it just doesn't work.
It just doesn't work right. But for instance, this movie I think did a very
it hits it out of the park.
I mean, it blends the two so well. There are sometimes moments where I don't even think I realized it.
Yeah.
But then looking at some of those like glamour shots of like the Gundam unit itself, or white base just like cruising in the air. It's just this
there was
animated
detail.
I was going to say, well, but it's also I believe some of that's actually like 3D animated.
Oh yeah.
It's not just like flat.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh wow, the fact that I couldn't tell is
Well,
impressive.
Right. I was like, I'm almost certain that most of the fight scenes that are really dynamic with the mobile suits fighting each other, I'm pretty
just
sure
about all CGI.
it's all CGI.
Really?
It's all animated.
No, because I thought that was like stop motion animation still, or like or picture animation, or whatever that's normally used.
I'm pretty sure all the actual like character people had that, but all the Gundam stuff wasn't. But that's what I'm saying.
That's
it's
impressive
like
that I couldn't tell the difference.
Right, yeah, and they did that same style in that new movie Hathaway that I was talking about. But it just has this, it just has that feel about it. I can't even. I gushed on a podcast episode we did, and I got a little weird with it. But I'm just saying it was just the way I described it was it feels sexy. It like there are so many of these moments that just feel hot and heavy, like because of the characters involved, not only because of like the actual like mobile suits themselves and with like all this tension going on, but there's this like tension. I'm talking about tension that's like fighting and stuff, but I'm talking about like there's also this like male and female character that have this kind of like tension as well, that they like blend in with it. And it feels like, I don't know if I should be like excited.
Right?
Yeah. It feels so. It's so interesting, but it has a way of messing with your emotions, where you're like, there's like a fight going on that's intense, and there's like this conflict between these people that also feels kind of like, will they, won't they kind of stuff. It's weird, but it's super cool.
It is a good film.
It is a good film. Sorry, I can just go ahead and stop talking about that. If it's making you guys uncomfortable.
It's fine.
So anyways, I enjoyed it, and I think it was a really great. But
one of the best movies in the franchise so far.
Right. Yeah. Do you guys have anything in particular in this movie that really stuck out to you as like a?
Don't look at me, Dylan.
Motherfucker, you were saying you had some thoughts. You better lay it out right now.
Yeah,
dude, I don't know like what more to say about it. Like the fight scenes, like okay, like I geek out over fight scenes, right? Like you know, like the big dude comes in and you're like, you see like the commandos dropping in. It's like when the moment that you start seeing the forces start to collide, or like things to set up start to collide, and there was one moment that clicked, and I forgot what it was, that they were like, oh, when they got the mission, when the Xeon commanders, the Southern Cross, they got the mission to go over there, and they were like, Doan, he might be on the island. He might be on the island, guys. He might be on the island. Everybody's freaking out, even though it's just a quote-unquote rumor at that point. Then it started to click. I was like, oh, my gosh, we're about to have like a really big fight scene here. Yeah. I'm starting to get giddy.
Right.
And you see stuff start flying in and shit.
It's because they and that's what I'm saying. Is like they have these characters written written so well that it's like there are certain beats that are being said throughout the story, like kind of like little breadcrumbs that are leading you to it, that they're realizing as they're going along, like something doesn't sound right here. Mm-hmm. Something sounds fishy and something sounds like a little bit like Doan would do. Right. And of course they're all like, "Ooh, we know it. This smells like," and then of course, like you said, whenever it gets to that point where like half the team's getting kind of hyped about going there, you're like, "Oh shit, something's about to go down." It's super cool. Mm-hmm. I loved so many of the interactions between Doan and like his like family that he made.
The kids, yeah.
Yeah, it just has this super like warm, heartfelt moment that's like I have seen people like that in the Gundam universe, and there's also people like that in real life too. Right. You have this hard exterior, you may be kind of cold, jaded, if you want to call it that.
He's one of my favorite examples of the big guy with a soft spot for kids.
Yes. Oh. Yeah. And that is that to a T, mm-hmm. where it's like that's the whole reason why he defected was because he was like, man, I'm really ruining some kids' lives here.
Yeah, in the original episode, it's now in the another funny thing I thought that they added was in the original episode for this, he only had like 3 kids that he was taking care of, along with
really,
yeah, and that was it. But in the movie, they gave him like an entire daycare's worth of children to look after.
Oh, I mean,
15 kids.
Yeah, it was something like 10 or 12.
Right.
Okay, so I believe. Okay, this is where I'm going to get off the beaten path a little bit. Mm-hmm. I have this memory in my brain of a guy taking care of 2 or 3 kids and our boy stumbling across him. I think we watched it. Was that part of the movie?
No.
Or so am I thinking of somebody else that
You're
was
probably thinking of the Xeon spy girl that Kai fell in love with, because she had 2 siblings she was taking care of.
I could have sworn. I could be wrong. I could have sworn was a guy who was like taking care of like 2 or 3 kids somewhere doing something. Did you show me that released episode, like the unreleased episode, the original?
I've shown you a trailer for it whenever it was like coming out soon, but that was about it.
It didn't like there was like graves involved. Like they had dug graves for somebody. I can't remember. Like it's just this like faint memory from like I want to say it was the original series. I think Amuro or somebody else gets involved, and they like dig a grave for somebody. And I think they say like Amuro's dead or whatever. Like there's like a headstone or something like that. Or I could be. I'm rambling now at this point.
Don't remember.
There is we stumble across a guy, I think, who's like former military or whatever, and he's taking care of some children or whatever. That's what at least I think is what it is.
Oh, you're thinking of the epilogue to 8th MS.
Is that what it is? Yes.
Shiro.
That's what it is. Yeah. Okay, yes, that's what I got timelines confused. Right. I got series confused. Please forgive me.
It's fine.
It vaguely sounded a lot like what we're talking about right now with our guy Doan taking care of 2 or 3 kids. Anyways, like I said, I digress. I digress. I knew it was going to be a little off the beaten path, hitting that one. But
another difference between the episode and the movie is that in the show, like whenever Doan, the Southern Cross isn't a thing like in the series that was made up for this film, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
But as he's fighting this Zaku that showed up to kill him, he says like directly that he was the one that killed their parents, and that's why he's taking care of them.
Holy shit.
And
in the episode?
Yes, in the episode. In the movie, it's heavily alluded to.
Yeah.
Because of this, like, nightmare he's having.
Oh, I'm pretty sure that, like, that actually is the kid. Like, if you look at that film,
they make it a point.
Lope or Loop?
Lope, yeah.
Lope, yeah.
Lope.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That definitely is. It was him crying over his parents' dead bodies. And it's like,
heavy.
And yeah, like I said, it gets heavy. And apparently the original was heavier. He's like, I was the one who killed your parents.
It was me, he says.
Holy shit, dude.
And then he uses his mobile suit martial arts. An actual quote, he says, by the way.
Yeah.
To punch a Zaku and it explodes.
Stop it.
Yes.
Damn.
It's amazing.
What a badass.
the little nod to, because in the show he threw straight up boulders, not just little rocks.
Right,
at the
right,
end
right.
There. That was just a little nod.
Okay.
But my God, it was hilarious.
Oh, that's why you were laughing. I was like,
Yes.
I was like, haha, he's throwing rocks. And it
Right.
was like meant so much more to you.
Yeah.
Right. Once upon a time, he was chucking big rocks at
Oh
him.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Damn, dude. I loved the way that this film like unfolded.
Yeah.
It felt so smooth,
Mm-hmm.
just from top to bottom.
Like butter.
Yeah, it just felt like there was no catch where like it felt, like it wasn't missing a beat. You know what I mean? It just felt very much like there's a lot of times in certain movies, especially ones that we've watched here, that are not quite as good as other stuff we've watched.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That you can really tell like the transition from we are in Act 1, now we are in Act 2. And finally, here we are in the conclusion. You're like, okay, you don't have to be so abrupt about it.
Right.
Is it weird of me to want it to go longer?
No.
No, because like
That's
how
completely
how
fine.
long was that? Was
Yeah,
that
in
movie?
total, like credits included, like an hour and 48 minutes.
Yeah, like I feel like if I don't know, maybe this is just my binge watch mindset here, but like
Right.
like I kind of
Well, I
wish
mean,
that it
hour,
was like,
hour and 30 minutes, that's the most Netflix. That's one episode of a Netflix show now.
Oh
Yeah.
God, yeah.
like I kind of wish that it was just like long. Like I feel like you can add so much more into a movie. I mean, like granted, great movie, great
Oh, yeah.
storyline, great
Right,
plot,
right.
great written,
We got him hooked.
but
He wants more.
He wants more.
don't tell me that because I actually will. But it's like you could just fit so much more plot stuff in there. Maybe that's just because I haven't seen all of Gundam yet
Right.
and been introduced to too
Oh,
much
but
of it.
it's
But
got
like
plenty.
you know,
Oh,
So
yeah.
much.
I can see what you're talking about by that, but
like character develop, like obviously there's character development throughout the
Right.
whole Gundam series, but like just
Mhm.
watching the movie stand alone. I mean, like obviously we got like the character development of Doan because you see like
Yes.
past and future, like past, present,
Right.
and future.
Right.
but at this point, like we had said, like at this point, Captain Bright and Amuro are established. You don't need
Right.
backstory for them, but for
Right.
you definitely need
was
some
like,
backstory.
oh, right.
Yeah.
The entire
like,
white
who's this guy
base
with these
crew
tiny
is
eyes?
unknown.
Can
Can
really
I
big forehead.
can I just say, dude, I loved the little. I wouldn't call it a montage, but I love the little.
The callback, the flashback to the bright slap,
Oh my god, twice
restored
Oh man, I love it.
in
And
eye-melting HD quality.
Technicolor. We got
It's
the
beautiful.
the 2 times
Both of
slap
them.
on Amuro. I was like, yes, dude,
You slapped me.
you slapped me again.
Not even my own father ever hit me.
Right?
I love that. It made me so happy to see that in just
Oh,
this
yeah, dude.
brilliant new, and the fact that he wasn't what's the word I'm looking for? It's not like he regretted it, but he was
Nah.
like, man, I gotta get that boy back.
Yeah.
It's what it felt like.
Like I put too much effort into that little fucker
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
just to lose him on an island.
that might have been one of the most hilarious scenes in that whole series. Hey, Captain, we need you to get here now. Where you at? Everything's breaking. So
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The
Oh,
the
yeah, the
gyroscope,
cover-up.
the gyroscopic, whatever it is definitely not working right. And the guy's like, what?
What?
And he's like,
Nani?
yeah, right. It pans out for a second, and then I said, what do you mean there's no fuel in the engine? I love that. He's just stalling.
Right,
I
so that
love
they can
that.
get Amuro back.
I love that the lieutenant kept saying, what was the phrase? I loved it. I can't remember it verbatim.
What are you talking about when he was going to ride the?
No, he was saying he said it like 2 or 3 times. He said, "Are you ready to get dangerously close to a court martial?"
Oh yes, like
Oh yeah.
yeah. He said that twice. He's like, "Okay, you guys ready to get close to a court martial?" And I was like, "Oh man, that's so good." But you're right though. Whenever he's talking about riding the back of the plane,
dude,
he's
I was like,
let me hop on your back real quick." He's like, "Wait, don't word it like that,
Yeah.
please."
promptly got the shit slapped out of him.
Oh my god, yeah. Learn from the
Sailor
best.
ain't nobody to fuck with.
No,
I hope he was sober.
Probably not.
he got the sober slapped into him. Yeah, like I said before, this I just really enjoyed many of the characters in this, and
It's just
I
good
love
to see the whole crew again.
It is. It was so cool to see all of like the original characters again in this like brilliant HD.
Mhm.
Super cool.
Don't
It's just-
spoil it for me now, but it makes it seem like you guys are missing some of these characters later on.
I mean, no, like
Nah, it's
no. Some of them
You
don't.
guys are
make
like looking at each other across the room, like I don't know. You want to tell him because I'm not.
Right.
Everything's fine.
Everything's fine.
But
When I say you're fine, but you're not really.
shut your mouth.
A lot of it is, I think, like at certain points they kind of disband. So like like it's nice to see the whole crew back together because sometimes they grow up and they kind of go their separate directions.
Right.
That's what I'll tell you is the safe thing to say.
Yeah.
So obviously, whenever everyone when the war breaks up and when things happen, they're not all together as a unit anymore. So to see this retelling of the whole squad back together, it's like, oh, this is really cool.
A wonderful thing to see.
Right.
How old are these kids?
Oh, so okay,
We're talking teenagers.
So
here.
okay, this is one thing that we didn't have a chance to really get involved with, and I'm gonna try to tell it to the best of my ability. Please, if
Give it your best.
I'm gonna let Dylan fix
Gundam in training.
fix the mistakes that I make. The best way to learn is to teach. So here we go. Basically, we had already told you this beforehand. For those of you listening at home, if you know the first series, the original series of Gundam, then again, just stick along with me and make fun of me as I try my best to describe this. So
it's his first go, folks. Go easy on him.
It's my first go at this since I watched it, which was a few months back.
Yeah,
it's been
a while.
It's been a while. So as we said before, there is the Earth and the Earth Federation.
Yes.
There is the Zeon, which are like people from space.
Yes.
They're humans, but they live in space and they have been born and raised in space in colonies. They're in colonies, right?
Specifically the Zeon colony.
Okay, so there is a Zeon-specific colony, but there are many other colonies. And so a lot of times if you were born and raised in a space colony, which is like this big tube in the sky, looks like a satellite, spins around, has like Earth, has grass, has, cars, has what looks like a real, almost like human terrarium. It's like you can fit many, many people inside. What is it called?
Space colony.
Space colony. Sorry, I'm blank.
So they
Right,
terraformed
you're
this satellite, basically.
Kind of on the inside. It's like it's got these like lifts out of it, and there's like almost like glass. It's not real, or it kind of is, but so you can see out into space, kind of. And there's like ways that it's interesting. It's really cool looking, and they have like in universe have made a way for people to survive and thrive inside these space colonies.
Right.
So anyways, if you were born and raised in a space colony, you were called a space noid. Is kind of like what you're colloquially called.
Stupid name.
It's such a stupid name, but it is what they are called technically.
Muggles.
Right. You bunch of freaking space noids. So between this, you have like the space colonies that are not Zeon specific,
Right.
are kind of this neutral party.
Right.
They don't really have any kind of specific affiliation to either side of the coin.
Right.
Zeon really doesn't like Earth because of reasons we won't get into today. And that's kind of the whole struggle is like the Earth Federation and the Zeon trying to like butt or actively butting heads with each other and causing a lot of stir.
Oh, yeah.
Well, on which space colony was Amuro part of?
He was on side 7.
So side 7, which is like almost like number 7 space colony.
Yeah, the 7th group of colonies.
Right. There was a secret underground facility that was manufacturing the Gundam, right? Okay.
Right.
Unbeknownst to like the neutral, quote unquote, side 7 space colonies.
They tend to pull this a lot.
Right.
With different colonies.
That they were having this kind of like underground affiliation with the Earth Federation to like produce this really crazy mobile suit, which is unheard of at this point in time. Right. Amuro's dad is like is kind of the one who's like creating it, like we told you before.
Tim Ray.
Tim Ray. And there's a lot of other stuff we won't get into with like his whole family dynamic. But basically what happens in the beginning of the first series is, again, for lack of a better term, there are Zeon forces that are trying to break into Side 7.
Right.
Just for a scouting op, mind
Just
you.
for a scouting op. Just to really poke around. And they end up busting up some shit. And then Amuro, quote unquote, falls into the possession of the Gundam.
Right.
When you say falls, are you like legitimately meaning
he,
like actually
he fell into the
falls?
cockpit and it closed, and he was like, "It's time to rumble."
Grabs the instruction manual.
yeah, exactly. And like I said, at this point, GMs and Zaku's been duking it out, kind of, back and forth. Equal.
GMs are still in development. At that point, all they have as far as mobile suits go are the gun cannons and the Gundam.
Okay. So at that point, there's not a whole lot.
Right.
So the Zaku's are kind of Johnny on the spot.
Oh,
for
yeah.
the most
Zeon
part.
has been kicking ass.
Right. And then
throughout the first major few engagements of the war.
And then I want to say, correct me if I'm wrong, he ends up taking possession over the Gundam, and then he ends up hitting them almost at the core, or he learns that the core is a reactor and tries not to hit it. Is that right?
No. He does hit it.
He does. Okay, so he does hit it and causes a nuclear explosion inside the space colony, and really wrecks some shit.
Oh yeah.
And then of course
So
learns
wait, he basically killed all of his people.
he killed the Zaku, and then of course it destroyed.
It blew up.
It blew up. Didn't it blow a hole in it?
Yep.
Yeah, so it blew a hole in the space colony. So we're talking about vacuum of space type shit here.
No longer habitable.
Right.
So he killed his people
Inadvertently, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
By accident. He tripped and fell in a
Into a Gundam.
He tripped and fell inside of a big robot and then blew up another big robot, causing a nuclear explosion, which then killed a large portion of the humanity that he knew.
There were still shelters in that thing.
Yes. Safety, like bunkers.
Right. God only knows if they were still worthy of use after a hole has been blown in.
Right. I don't know what happens. And then the kind of the details to get from that to White Base is a little fuzzy for me.
Well, the White Base is at the colony also.
Okay, so White Base is at the colony.
They were in the process of loading the mobile suits onto White Base.
I see. So basically, with that being said, and Captain Bright is captain of that ship, right? Or not quite.
He is actually the second in command, I will say.
Right.
The original captain gets wounded and has to be transferred off ship for medical leave. So they leave Bright in charge.
Okay. So again,
he is acting captain.
So he again also trips and falls into being captain of this massive ship.
Oh yeah.
Which I don't think has any crew, and the only crew that he gets is just evacuated teenagers.
Of civilians, yeah.
Evacuated civilians.
So now he's kind of like forming the elite squad.
And so he is.
Like
that's the thing is that of all among all the evacuees that he got, some being children, as you saw.
Yeah.
Some being teenagers, some being a little older than that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Amuro was one of them, obviously being able to pilot this a very, very well-equipped mobile suit.
The only one at the time.
Only one at the time.
With it.
Why wouldn't the Federation take this away from them? You know what I mean? It's like, why would you let your kids play with
they tried.
the toys?
Well, yeah, they were
they were going to.
They were like, well, kids, you did so well. Why don't you just stick around, huh?
Yeah. They kind of did that. The thing is, so this is what happens.
Why don't we make your military career official?
So that's what I'm saying by being like co-opted into the military, is that they all escape on White Base, and then Captain Bright, now newly acquired Captain Bright's like, okay, well, we need people to run this ship, so
how about you give me an actual
computers. Right. And then, of course, starts, commanding what crew he has.
Teaching everyone as much as he can.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
and he is the only adult out of this
Bright is the realest motherfucker you will ever meet.
And like I said, whenever, because Amuro didn't really have any other job, I think, except for like being the Gundam pilot.
He was a school kid.
So, right. I'm talking about like any job on the ship.
Oh, like on the ship? Okay.
Okay.
He was in charge of like various maintenance and repairs to the Gundam.
I see. Well, but still, he was the Gundam.
He's the
boy.
Gundam guy.
So whenever he would get sassy, there was a couple of times where he would get real sassy with Bright. And Bright just gave him the old
It's like, hey, why aren't you going out there and
slide.
fighting? It's like, because I don't want to fucking die. It's
I
like,
don't wanna
big fucking whoop.
Nobody
You know
else
what happens if you won't go out there? We're all going to die.
Yeah, it's like that kind of shit where it's like really slapping some sense into.
I haven't slept in days. It's like, well, that's just too fucking bad, isn't it?
Boo freaking who, huh? It's that kind of shit where it's like, damn, son.
If I get any more lip from you, I'm going to give you 5 across the face.
Yeah, right.
Again.
Yeah, so anyways, that kind of is what is that. Mm-hmm. And so with that being said, that is the crew of the White Base.
Yeah.
Is these like this merry band of
Bright's
misfits.
Daycare.
Bright's Daycare.
Bright's Daycare.
And then, so yeah, it has. There's a ton more exposition that happens. Like I said, there's other things that are involved, and I think eventually everyone kind of falls into their position and does a decent job at it.
Oh yeah, they
To
become one of the best fighting forces in the war, like towards the mid to tail end of it.
Right. At the point whenever, like, not only did the higher ups in the Earth Federation say, like, why don't we just keep you there? Everyone was kind of like, well, let's just kind of stick together.
I mean, I guess.
The thing is, like, you lost everything. Like, your whole home is
nothing really to go back to.
any family you had or any kind of home you had on, Side 7 is demolished.
Like, White
it's
Base
gone.
is their home.
Right. It very quickly became that. And again,
Oh,
it became your new family. And so it just kind of, in the show, kind of like, obviously, it's well written, and it kind of expands upon that and makes you feel more like, okay, this is kind of a team. But then that's what I mean by saying, like, as they grow up and they kind of devolve and go their own ways, to kind of go back and see this, like, again,
it's a nice return to form.
Right, exactly. Nice return to form. And then to see it in this, like, beautiful art style being, it's like, okay, this is really nostalgic. Even though I don't really have that sort of, like, really big nostalgia kick for it, it's like, oh, this is cool to see.
Right.
Because the last time I saw this group was like, it has like this really 80s anime art style. So it's kind of cool to see. So
something that was really interesting to me, and this is like digressing back probably a good like 15 minutes before the whole conversation of like the origin story here, but
that's okay.
The when we were talking about like the feel and the vibe that this movie gave, for me it was a little bit different because I'm a shonen guy. I'm used to Naruto, Black Clover, Fairy Tail, stuff like that. Right. And moving into something like this, it was when we were kind of like seeing the aspect of like Doan's family, that whole like 20, 30 minute time period. I've never seen Slice of Life, but I imagine that's kind of what's like a Slice of Life show is like. More
he's just
mellow,
working on a farm, raising a bunch of kids.
Working on them farms.
Dude,
potatoes.
This is one of the only instances I can think of where I do not actively hate anime children.
Oh God, they're so easy to hate.
All the sweetest little buttons you have ever did see.
The 3 kids that we saw for that little bit that were on White Base.
Oh yeah, Katz,
oh God,
Kika.
Oh my God, they're probably my least favorite part of like the original series. It's just these little screaming children. I'm like, oh God, I would hate to do
constant basis.
I'm just, they're constantly just like getting into shit, and they're kind of the comedic relief,
right?
Because they're also kind of that like the child aspect of it. So it's like they come in to like add brevity to a situation, but they're also kind of like whiny a lot of times too. Like as you saw, like in that one little scene, has that kind of like they lighten the mood a little bit, but I think they were portrayed a little better in this version of it because like
they weren't as bad.
They were really obnoxious in the movies that I saw in the original series. I was like, gosh, can we just spit them out the airlock, please?
Anime comedic relief really doesn't.
Well, I think
at least to like our Western mind, I think it just doesn't.
I think it's a cultural thing,
right? We're just like, huh, or like. All right, just continue, please.
It's
this
like,
is really cringy.
It's like British slapstick too. British slapstick humor is like has a different feel than like I don't know. It's just so different. But everyone has their own sense of comedy.
It's painful. It hurts.
All right, come on now.
It hurts me at least.
Okay,
not my style, not my cup of tea.
Right.
But yeah, I love Doan's kids.
Oh, yeah, amazing.
There's a whole bunch of them.
An entire gaggle.
Yeah. I like the aesthetic of like this like huge crater in a lighthouse kind of vibe. Just like just barren wasteland is what it feels like. Super cool looking. And it was a cool setting for these like big mech fights.
Oh yeah. Never in my life would I have thought I'd seen the Gundam fighting a bunch of Zakus in a dormant volcano.
Dude, okay. This has that same feeling that we watched recently a few episodes back of the Broly movie.
Yeah.
Is whenever you're dealing with shit this powerful, like you really have to have a good setting for it.
Oh yeah.
You can only the only exception I can say to that is Godzilla, which like his whole premise is destroying Tokyo. That's that is one of the big,
romps through cities all the time.
It just is what it is. But like, you can only destroy so many cities in a big robot before you're like, is there any cities left? Like any big cities left? You know. So it's like, especially whenever it's like a really high stakes big battle, and there's like 4 or 5, high mobility suits just like blasting around, just like destroying shit. It's like, I love the look of that. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes like I love the idea of like we are on a volcanic crater, and there's nothing for a couple miles in this small island. And we can just duke it out in the dirt.
Me and you, bitch.
Right. And that's the same thing that Broly did. Is like they went off like way off in the Arctic. There's ice. There ain't nothing around. Ain't nobody. No people. Ain't no buildings.
Ain't nobody's gonna mind with the mountains.
And they blasted holes to the Earth's crust.
Yeah,
and
basically.
Right. They upended the molten core of the Earth and made it surface level.
Yeah.
And again, you're like, oh, that totally feels fine because again, there ain't nothing around here. Ain't nobody gonna get mad. Right. ain't nobody losing a house out here. So,
the sea level might rise, but whatever.
Yeah, it is what it is. We'll just create this new land. So yeah,
fresh biome.
Right, and I like that. I like that with this kind of
it's
aesthetic.
Nice.
So
it was interesting to see them fight in Morocco, to be completely honest, because I don't know the background.
That's what I'm saying.
It was I don't know. It held like somewhat of a brevity towards it, of like seeing like, oh, there's people here, or there was people here, like the remnants of society.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like what the Federation, what a war-torn town, or like what war does to a city, and like to Morocco.
Well, especially because this isn't like new tech.
Yeah.
Like in this time period, like there have been things like this, but like nothing as
big.
Nothing is big and as fast as what they had at that point. So it's like it's that feeling of what like the new level of like war feels like.
Yeah.
Where it's
a fresh hell is unveiled.
Yeah, it feels like you made this next step in technology, but like you never really had the chance to like really work it out, or regulate it. But you just started making them, and they're big and they're causing a mess, and it's like now people are dying, towns are destroyed, and that's just the way it is now. And it's like this is the new norm now. It's like we are in shambles, is what it feels like.
Kind of like the World Wars, basically.
Oh, right. It's like this whole new level of like we've never lived through this before. It feels like that, of these cities being in shambles, and you're like, well, that's just Morocco now.
So like the high mobility mechs aren't like a normal thing for the
those
franchise.
are state of the art.
Those were like state of the art for this movie.
Which is why whenever you saw them in Morocco, they were just kicking ass.
Yeah, they were flying through the city streets, and I thought that was normal for like Zaku to do.
Right.
But
at least for a high mobility one.
Later in the series, they have like I said before. Later in the series, they increase and make some better. They have like upgraded versions of the Gundam, making them faster and stronger, and be able to like fly and operate in space and stuff like that. So they have like better iterations of it, and they get really cool. And they get
better.
I'm telling you, man. I mean, obviously, it is probably the number one like mech anime out there. That, like for a lot of people, there are probably better written stories or different stories. People may have different opinions. But like probably one of the longest running ones that has like this.
It's a cornerstone for sure.
Cornerstone, man.
It's kind of like Naruto for shonen,
right?
Okay. Yeah, I'd say so.
Gone on for a long time. But with that, like it's the same sort of thing as Naruto. It's like they're always this like next level of like crazy bullshittery.
But the cool thing is, from what it sounds like, it doesn't get to like the level of like you're fighting. Spoilers. You're not fighting gods. You know what I mean? Kind of like. Well,
it gets there eventually.
Yeah, but it's not like it's okay. Then let me explain a different thing. It's not like Dragon Ball Z, where it's like, oh, we're destroying a planet, to we're destroying galaxies, to we're destroying like dimensions.
Yeah, no.
It doesn't
at
go,
least not for Gundam.
Right. And it doesn't get to that level of like it's like this really like big thing that's gonna like destroy everybody.
Right.
They definitely try.
Yeah.
They definitely try with the weapons and the technology they have. They really do try to kill everybody. That's what it feels like.
But they haven't made gods yet, right?
That
they get to that point.
Spoilers.
They get to that point where you remember how I said Amuro has like an aptitude with the Gundam?
Yeah.
There are better versions of the Gundam or better versions of Gundams, and there are certain people that almost have like the Force from Star Wars.
Right.
That is like you are born with a certain aptitude because you are underneath. You have these certain genetic traits or whatever, and you can operate these.
On a higher level,
You can operate these very complex machines with your mind and your emotions.
Damn.
Where it's like on this whole new level of shit. Where it's like I'm over here with joysticks, and you're over here just like mentally controlling this robot, and I can't keep up. So I'm trying my best, just trying to shoot with what I have, and you're just zipping around like it's like your second skin. This this massive robot, and you're like, holy shit.
So does this tie in to kind of like the willpower to keep fighting, like that? Like we're talking about separating, because we were talking about this. Me and Dylan were talking about this earlier.
Explained the differences between real robots and super robots too.
Oh, right.
So
Showed him a few things from Get a Robo.
Yeah.
Gurren Lagann is a big one.
So does it dip into that kind of
a teeny little bit,
like your willpower to kill the enemy or like to destroy the enemy at that point, and to like overcome the odds is based off your willpower and your aptitude for controlling these
it never becomes the primary thing. There's still like an analog element to it, but there are these upper echelon of Gundam or mobile suit units that like average Joe just can't operate or can't operate well.
So how would Doan fare in like the future? Would you say not well? He'd be like a peon, just a pawn.
He'd be good.
Yeah,
He's still got that. He's still got good piloting skills.
Like same mech.
Like
up against the ones we're talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, this is no contest. That's like an ant.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Fighting a fucking dog.
So current Amuro Gundam versus like a couple episodes later. Still same thing, ant. Because it does it like
a couple episodes later, he might have like some difficulty.
Right.
But he'll probably pull it out.
So they upgrade pretty consistently, and it's like
every now and then.
Okay.
Right. He'll get like a new weapon, some new equipment,
right,
stuff like that.
Okay,
right. Nothing as big of a jump that we're talking about.
Right.
The one that we're talking about is handfuls of years later, a couple of decades. Whenever we're now discovering that like, oh, these people have like been in these mobile suits for a while. Some people are good at it. Some people have this like psycho, like a psychotic. I don't want to say psychotic. What is it called?
Premonition
kind of thing.
Telepathy almost.
Right. Have this kind of like this level of like.
They rationalize it as like the more you pilot a mobile suit in space, the
more connected to it you become.
That and like you'll start developing these crazy like almost supernatural skills.
Like sixth sense stuff.
Right. You'll become a new type is what they call it.
A new type. In the earlier like a little bit in the future from where we just watched, they have like people are talking about the idea of like maybe that person's a new type, and it's like that's all just false. That's all just fake.
A rumor.
It's all just rumor. And then of course whenever like they start making like these Gundams or these mechs that are like really like centered around these like new type abilities, and they're like thriving on it. They're like, bunch of bullshit now, huh?
Right.
Yeah. Got these like psycho, premonition abilities.
Biosensors.
Right. And you're like, yep, it was right the whole time. So
looks,
like now,
looks pretty new to me.
Exactly. So now if you're this new type, you're like this kind of
the next step in human evolution.
Exactly.
So you're like the new kid on the block. You are like the shit.
Right.
You are a new type.
Right. But with that, like we said before, is again being able to control a mech with that kind of power is again, like I said, it's just you trying to drive a car while I'm just like sitting here thinking and just moving around, flying around in a plane.
Right.
It's just different. There's battles in space where you're watching these guys just zip around, and these guys are like, "Oh my god!" He's just trying his best. You're like, yeah, it's just it feels that crazy where they're just so fast and so it's crazy. But like I said, with that, it's really interesting, and I love. The power creep is not quite as insane as one of those like super robots.
Oh yeah.
I've always joked around about Gurren Lagann because Gurren Lagann is the epitome of, for me at least, is escalation.
Mm-hmm.
Gurren Lagann only knows escalation.
Oh yeah.
there is no turning back or downgrading. It is only bigger, better, more powerful.
Pierce the heavens.
Pierce the heavens with the giga piercing heaven or heaven piercing giga drill.
Mm-hmm.
It is like that.
What?
Yeah. That's what I'm telling you, man. There is this level. I watched the movies, right?
Yes.
The consolidation movies.
Mm-hmm.
And
You still need to watch the show.
I need to watch the show really bad. It starts off from like a boy living underground. A boy. Yes. Living underground to then him like getting a robot.
I feel like I've seen the like trailers.
You
for this or
probably
something.
have.
Maybe.
It's been around for a while.
Okay.
But just know that, like I said, it just keeps escalating.
Oh, yeah.
It keeps one-upping itself to a point to where I'm like, you can't go anymore. And then they just do it again.
Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, we're what was it called? It's like towards the end, we're in this white void.
Oh,
we're in the void of time and space itself, and he's just sitting here, just punching the shit out of this, just like ethereal being. And I'm like, what are we doing?
Is this God?
Yeah, exactly.
Am I fighting God?
Yeah. And then, of course, his hand turns into a drill. He just drills the shit out of stuff, and you're like, I don't.
What's going on?
Yeah, it's like that kind of stuff. I'm like, and I love
The
that.
fucking best.
Like that's the thing. But do you enjoy that to like up to a certain point, right? Because you can only go so far with stuff, or
Not
at least,
with Gurren Lagann.
Like-
Not with Gurren
It's
Lagann.
the exception.
Yeah.
like, but you can, you know what I mean? Like you can only conceptualize and then
Right.
only go bigger to where
the-
your dopamine levels
Right.
start kicking in.
The thing is, for me, like I was saying, the Gurren Lagann is the epitome for that, because I think
Right.
they did it well.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it escalates, but it never
it doesn't
does.
lose its flavor.
No, it doesn't, because it's always something new.
Oh, yeah.
But it also it escalates in a way that is interesting, and it draws the story forward. But there are numerous times when I was watching it that I had those moments where I was like, man, look how far we've
This
come,
is
dude.
fucking insane.
Yeah, I was like, we were in a hole in the ground, and now we're in space flying battleships.
Did he just throw a galaxy?
Yes, he just picked up a whole ass galaxy and threw it at him.
You're lying. That doesn't happen.
It
does.
happens.
It fucking does.
But that's what I'm saying. Is but it happens over a long period of time, and it happens incrementally to where it never, for me at least, it was never super jarring until you really conceptualize what we're talking about here. And then you're like, damn, like this is insane.
Oh, yeah.
Watch this.
It's really good. It's a very good show.
So
Row, fight the power.
Indeed.
back to like the whole like what we just watched.
Mm-hmm.
Except I can't state the title of the name of the movie here. If you could rate this in like the Gundam episodes that you've watched, where would you rate this?
Man, it is definitely not the top of my list as far as, because there are some good series. If we're talking about like series in total, like if we have like this, are you talking about?
I'm talking about in the Gundam universe.
That's what I'm saying. In the Gundam universe,
Yes.
there are other things that have a higher place in my heart.
In your heart.
I mean, like, you know, like that I think touched me in a way
Right.
that this one didn't quite. It's a great movie. But there are certain series in the Gundam universe that I think really strike a chord with me.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Stardust Memory kind of being one of them.
Yeah.
It just made me feel something. And I'm
It's
a sucker
amazing.
for art that makes me really feel something. And that was one of those that I felt sad and angry at the end
Yeah.
in a whole new way.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, and that, and then what was that? Oh, come on, what was it again? The specialized team.
8th MS team.
8th MS team. Gosh, dude, what
That was a good one.
a fun vibe. And that's if we're talking about like shows. If I can consider like a whole show, 8th MS team, like those.
So you could consider like I don't know how like the franchise works, but if it like goes by arcs, you could consider it by arcs. Or,
Well, so I have watched. I haven't really watched a lot of the spin-off series.
right.
Ethan has watched a couple of them, and they kind of get a little wild because they're like their own little microcosm. It's like you can imagine.
We're in the middle of Iron-Blooded Orphans and G Gundam.
You guys watch both of them?
We started both of them.
Okay.
G Gundam is the one we're closest to finishing.
These little individual ones are like a series, like a season of a show, and it's its own like little standalone series. I haven't watched a lot of those, so it's not like part like the mainline timeline. So just imagine it is sort of in the Gundam universe. You were talking about actual Gundam suits. A lot of times they're called that, but it's not part of like the mainline universe. It is like its own separate story.
Right.
It has its own people, its own characters.
So it doesn't hold any canon.
It doesn't hold. Yeah, it is its own separate entity.
Okay.
If you want to take the UC timeline as like the main canon, which is fair. I mean, that's the first one. I think a lot of them can fit in. Like, oh god, you know what? They're all canon because of the correct century.
I know. I know.
Why?
Dark history.
Oh god,
it's something that comes up at the very end of the Gundam timeline, like as a whole, in a series called Turn A Gundam.
It gets that's
a whole nother discussion.
It is a whole other discussion for another day.
Right.
But for me, a majority of all the content that I've seen of Gundam is that mainline Universal Century timeline. And there are many different series of shows. I just
realized we've stuck to exclusively UC stuff for you.
And that's okay, and I wanted that. And I wanted to get the richness of what like the main Gundam universe is, and I'm okay with that. And we watched, the only one that we watched in its entirety that wasn't part of the main line was Wing and Endless Waltz, which was oh my god, dude.
What a fucking ride that was.
Oh my god. Anyways, so when you were asking like where do I rate this?
Yeah, where do you rate
this? This is a standalone movie.
It's a love letter.
Right, yeah, it's a love letter.
You could rate it 1 through 10 instead of like putting it into like a ranking.
And that's I'm trying to talk through my process of like if I'm able to pick from all the different series that happen in that mainline time.
Right.
I would give it a 6.
Yeah,
6 or 7. There are better Gundam stuff out there. But
so you're rating it based off the other Gundams as well, not just like standalone.
Oh, no. Standalone, I would give it probably 8 or 9. It's a great film. Yeah. It's really, really good. Beautiful. But as far as like on my favorites list, I can name off a couple that I already have. I've already chilled on a handful of them. Hathaway was so good. And others, and like I said before.
Yeah. So I can't not give it a good rating.
It's so good.
I feel like you could give every single Gundam movie, show, anything like a rating of a 10 out of 10.
Dude, compared to the original episode that this movie is based on, it is a flagrant 10.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Like, it's ridiculous how much they improved on that, like, 28-minute episode.
Yeah. They did a really good job flushing it out. Really, really good job. If you guys have the ability to, which not everyone may, if you have the ability to, I would definitely recommend
If you know where to go.
If you know where to go.
These completely legal websites.
You know where to get it. And trust me, it is worth the watch.
Oh, yeah.
Next thing I want you to watch is Hathaway.
Yeah, that'll be a good one.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Have you guys seen a movie together, like in the mech world that neither of you have seen at the same time?
Oh, I doubt it. Well...
Because it'd be really interesting to see Dylan's reaction
if we're talking technicality wise, we both watched. Now I believe we both watched at the same time the third or fourth remake of the. Or I don't want that's not the remake. Is the Evangelion films?
Yes,
we watched the new one.
As soon as that came out,
we both watched
Amazon Prime,
which that is technically a mech anime of sorts, and we watched that one. Which oh man, what a great conclusion! There's so many great things, so many great series and movies, especially in this like franchise and this kind of art style.
I say that because it'd be really interesting to see Dylan's reaction. Because every single movie that you guys watch, for the most part, is already in Dylan's head. He's like, "Yep."
Well, man, that's the whole premise of the show.
Yeah, right.
The whole premise of the show is a lot of times he has seen the film or he has seen the series, and I have not, and we are here discussing just that.
Which is why it'd be interesting to see what like Dylan's side and perspective is to like pick his brain on it, since he's like the mech expert guy.
We have watched. There has been a couple episodes, potentially, that both you and I haven't watched the film, but our guest has. Or I'm thinking of one in particular, and it was Valerian in the city of Fallen, whatever it was.
Yeah, I can't remember the name either, but
Right.
that one was fun.
My middle brother Eric came over and he wanted to watch this movie called Valerian.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, let's see.
Oh, you want to talk about a trip?
Oh yeah, yeah.
That shit was nuts.
And the City of 1,000 Planets.
God.
That's what it was. Yeah, and that was a freaking fever dream.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one that neither one of us had watched, and we had both seen it at the same time. So we try to spice it up a little bit. If there is a movie that you think of, that you can think of that Dylan hasn't watched, or myself,
that's like a challenge in itself.
I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, I would challenge you to come on the podcast with us again and watch it.
I haven't seen everything.
Gosh, right.
I'll have to send you like 100, and you can pick out the 2 that you haven't
seen.
Yeah, that'll be fine.
Right. But anyways, I'm glad that we were able to talk about this movie. We went a little bit over than what I was expecting, but that's okay because I feel like this movie deserves it. Of all the things, I feel like Cade deserves a good chunky episode.
Oh yeah,
as well as
for his
this
chunky.
This film, I think, really deserves this as well because it is so well done.
Oh yeah.
But anyways, thank you so much for joining us, Cade.
Thank you for having me on.
If you are looking for ways to get in contact with us, you can look at the show notes, and you have all of our links there, linktree/Ian Wolf. You can find all the different podcasting platforms that we're on and all that stuff as well. But anyways, until next week, thank you so much for listening.
See you later.
Peace out.
Bye-bye.